Let's be honest, most buoy movie lists are as predictable as a Bond villain monologue. Everyone's heard of Casablanca, The Great Escape, and the Spielberg blockbusters. But what about the forgotten thrillers where the real secret agents did their work in the shadows? No capes, no CGI, just pure nerve? Ever wondered how deep the rabbit hole goes for wartime espionage flicks you've never heard of? Strap in, because the true masterworks of cloak and dagger cinema are about to break their silence. Five Graves to Cairo, 1943. Most people think Billy Wilder's spy classics start with Double Indemnity, wrong decade, wrong genre, and totally missing the real trivia prize, Five Graves to Cairo. Released in the thick of World War II, this desert thriller dropped audiences right into Rommel's North African chess game, and barely anyone remembers it. Wilder, the future legend, was still a newcomer. But his take on wartime deception? Absolute dynamite. The premise sounds simple. British Corporal John Bramble, Franchot Tone, stumbles into a remote hotel on the Egyptian front, battered and desperate after his unit is wiped out. But fate, as it tends to do in the best spy stories, is waiting with a loaded deck. The hotel's about to be overrun by Field Marshal Rommel's staff, and Bramble, a nobody, gets the wild idea to pose as a dead waiter and spy from within. The tension ratchets up minute by minute. Nobody is safe, everyone has something to hide, and the Nazi officers are just as paranoid as the Allies. The real genius? The film was shot and released during the war, so the outcome wasn't history yet. It was real stakes, real fear. The script is tight, slyly funny, and dripping with wartime anxiety. Wilder wrings suspense out of every shadow and misplaced glance, and Erich von Stroheim's performance as Rommel is pure menace in a monocle. There's even an ingenious plot twist involving secret maps hidden in plain sight. It's espionage, improvisation, and double-crossing before Hollywood had a formula for any of it. Despite rave reviews and an Oscar nod for cinematography, Five Graves to Cairo got overshadowed by flashier fare and quietly slipped into obscurity. But make no mistake, this is a forgotten gem that practically invented the modern undercover behind enemy lines thriller. So next time someone lectures you about wubby toy movies, hit them with this wild card. Odette 1950. You want true grit. Forget James Bond. Let's talk about Odette. This British film isn't about fantasy gadgets or witty quips, but a real-life woman who outfoxed the Nazis and survived their worst. Odette Sansom, French-born, British by marriage, and recruited into Churchill's Special Operations Executive, was the definition of nerves of steel. When most people think spy, they imagine some smooth-talking guy with a tux, but Odette, played with absolute fire by Anna Neagle, was a housewife-turned-clandestine courier. After parachuting into occupied France, she became a linchpin for the resistance, ferrying codes, coordinating sabotage, and generally making the Gestapo look like amateurs. But the real shock? She was betrayed by a double agent, captured, and tortured. The Nazis tried everything to break her. Instead, she fed them a web of fake stories and refused to betray her comrades, even when faced with death in Ravensbrück concentration camp. Here's where the movie pulls no punches. Released just 5 years after the war, Odette is raw, honest, and doesn't sugarcoat the horror. It's not stylized action, it's survival, grit, and the unglamorous reality of espionage. The filmmakers brought in Odette herself as a consultant, and many scenes are ripped straight from her actual interrogations. The camera lingers on her moments of doubt, the near misses, and the moments where it's not clear if courage or sheer stubbornness is keeping her alive. Critics at the time called it the most realistic spy film ever made. But for modern audiences, it's a revelation. No CGI, no explosions, just a relentless, lived-in authenticity. Why isn't it a household name? Maybe because it's uncomfortable, maybe because it reminds us that real heroism isn't always pretty. But one thing's for sure, after you've watched Odette, you'll never look at a spy movie the same way again. Decision Before Dawn, 1951. What happens when the only person you can trust is the enemy? That's the knife-edge tension at the heart of Decision Before Dawn, a war thriller that's as cold and hard as a Berlin winter. Sure, it snagged a Best Picture nomination in its day, but ask around, almost no one remembers this icy espionage drama where loyalty is just another weapon and everyone has something to lose. The setup is deliciously twisted. The Allies, desperate to end the war, recruit German POWs to spy on their own countrymen, offering redemption, a shot at survival, or maybe just a ticket out of the POW camps. Into this moral blender steps Happy, a young German prisoner who genuinely despises the Nazis. The Americans send him back across the lines to gather intelligence on troop movements, with only the barest promise of protection. His partner, Tiger, is the exact opposite, bitter, cynical, and haunted by betrayal at every turn. What makes Decision Before Dawn so gripping is its refusal to paint anyone as a clean-cut hero. Happy is constantly surrounded by suspicion, hunted by the Gestapo, distrusted by the Allies, and forced to bluff his way through checkpoints and safe houses, where one wrong word means death. Shot on location in post-war Germany, the ruined landscapes and bombed-out cities give every scene a ghostly, paranoid energy. You can almost smell the cold sweat. Director Anatol Litvak leans into the ambiguity. Trust no one, believe nothing, and always look over your shoulder. Richard Basehart delivers a performance that's all nerves and shadows, but it's Oscar Werner as Happy who walks away with the film. His wide-eyed idealism runs smack into the ugly machinery of war, and every scene pulses with dread. So why is this movie lost to history? Maybe because it doesn't offer easy answers, or maybe, just maybe, because it's a spy movie that tells the brutal truth. In war, there are no guarantees, just decisions you have to make before dawn. Operation Amsterdam, 1959. Diamonds, Nazis, and a city on the brink. Operation Amsterdam is the spy caper you never knew you needed. Forget what you think you know about wabu-wayu thrillers. This one drops you right into the Dutch resistance, where every tick of the clock means another secret deal, coded message, or life on the line. The plot is as sharp as the jewels at its core. In May 1940, as Hitler's tanks barrel toward Amsterdam, a trio of British agents is tasked with one desperate mission: extract a fortune in industrial diamonds before the Nazis can grab them for their war machine. The catch? They've got to do it while dodging fifth columnists, trigger-happy Germans, and Dutch collaborators who'll sell anyone out for the right price. Leading the team is Tony Britton's Major Dillon, a man who looks like he'd rather be sipping tea in London, but who turns out to be all grit and improvisation under pressure. But this isn't just another boy's own adventure. The tension comes not just from the Nazis, but from the atmosphere of total collapse. Dutch citizens are torn between fighting back, fleeing, or cashing in. The city is thick with panic, betrayal, and last-minute gambits. Eva Bartok's Anna, a Dutch resistance fighter with a tragic backstory, isn't there for window dressing. She's the one with real nerve, guiding the men through city blocks crawling with spies and informers. The film hums with urgency, shot in black and white on the actual streets of Amsterdam. It feels as close to documentary realism as you can get without bullets actually flying. There's no Hollywood gloss, just tight pacing and sharp, clever twists. Double agents, secret codes, and frantic getaways. If you're looking for a war movie that's all smoke mirrors and pulse-pounding suspense, this is the one. Why did it disappear? Maybe because it never shouted about its own greatness. But if you want a spy movie where the stakes are measured in diamonds, life, and death, Operation Amsterdam is a vault you'll want to crack open. The Silent Enemy, 1958. You think James Bond was the original British underwater hero? Please. Long before 07 traded his tux for a wetsuit, there was The Silent Enemy, a film that dives into the real-life origins of naval sabotage and explosive espionage, where the only gadgets were a brave heart, a breathing tube, and maybe a knife strapped to your ankle. Set in the Mediterranean cauldron of W2, this criminally overlooked gem tells the true story of Lionel Buster Crabbe, Royal Navy frogman, legend, and original aquatic saboteur. His mission: take on the Italian frogmen who were sinking Allied ships at anchor using stealth, cunning, and a frankly terrifying array of underwater explosives. Think SEAL Team 6, but with less technology and more brass. Unlike the usual spy flick with fedoras and shady nightclubs, this one plunges you straight into the oily, freezing waters of Gibraltar Harbor. Crabbe, played by Lawrence Harvey with a jaw set to bulldog, leads a ragtag team of divers tasked with neutralizing enemy mines and fighting a literal shadow war beneath the waves. There's no room for error. One wrong move, one wire snipped in the wrong place, and it's over in a flash of bubbles. What makes The Silent Enemy so unforgettable isn't just the action, it's the bone-deep realism. Filmed with Royal Navy support, the underwater sequences are way ahead of their time. You feel every claustrophobic second, every blind search for a ticking mine, every brush with death in the dark. The Italian divers aren't cartoon villains either. They're skilled, deadly, and sometimes even more likable than the brass back at HQ. The film never became a household name, maybe because it's not flashy. It's a working-class hero's story. No fancy lines, no Hollywood glow, just pure, nerve-shredding courage against impossible odds. If you want to see the birth of real underwater espionage, before Bond, before Bourne, track down the silent enemy, just remember to breathe. The Man Who Never Was, 1956. Forget every movie you've ever seen about double agents and cloak and dagger mind games. None of them have anything on the true story behind The Man Who Never Was. This is the kind of espionage that's so outlandish you'd swear it was fiction, except every jaw-dropping detail actually happened. The plot? It's 1943, and the Allies desperately need to convince Hitler the D-Day invasion will land somewhere other than Normandy. Enter British intelligence's wildest gamble, Operation Mincemeat. Their plan? Take a corpse, dress him up as a Royal Marine, fill his pockets with love letters and top-secret invasion documents, then dump the body off the Spanish coast where the Nazis are sure to find him. If it works, it could save thousands of lives. If it fails, the whole war could tip the wrong way. The movie doesn't just focus on the mechanics, it delves into the bizarre humanity behind the operation. We meet Ewan Montague, played by Clifton Webb, the real MI5 mastermind, as he sweats every detail, right down to the photograph in the dead man's wallet. There's a steady build of tension as the plan is set into motion, with the audience in on every risk and reversal. The Spanish authorities, the ever-watchful Gestapo, even the regular folk who might stumble across the body, all are potential wildcards. Director Ronald Neame keeps things brisk and suspenseful, but never loses sight of the deeply odd, almost tragic heart of the mission. This man, Major William Martin, never existed, yet his sacrifice turns the tide of the war. The fact that the operation worked, Hitler actually moved forces away from Normandy, is the punchline history buffs will never get over. Why don't more people know about this film? Maybe because, like its subject, it prefers to work in the shadows. But if you want to see the spy movie where the fate of nations hangs on a nameless corpse, The Man Who Never Was is your classified must-watch. The Secret of Santa Vittoria, 1969. Think all World War II spy films are bleak, trench-coated affairs? The Secret of Santa Vittoria says, "Hold my Chianti." This is the rare espionage tale that's part resistance thriller, part riotous Italian comedy, and all about the underdog punching above its weight with a little vino on the side. The setup is delicious. It's 1943, and a tiny Italian hill town, Santa Vittoria, is about to be occupied by Nazi troops. The town's only true treasure, over 1 million bottles of prized local wine, which the Germans are eager to confiscate. Enter Anthony Quinn as Bombolini, a local buffoon-turned mayor who's suddenly forced to outsmart the entire Wehrmacht with nothing but clever schemes, a stubborn populace, and the world's greatest underground wine cellar. This isn't your usual shadowy world of spies and silencers. Here, the weapons are deception, disguise, and the ironclad Italian refusal to let good wine fall into the hands of invaders. Bombolini rallies the townsfolk in a masterclass of collective improvisation, hiding barrels, staging fake riots, and using sheer chutzpah to keep the Germans searching in all the wrong places. The suspense doesn't come from ticking bombs, but from whether the Nazis will finally sniff out the hidden stash or get drunk and distracted by the locals' antics. Directed by Stanley Kramer, the film balances screwball comedy with real tension. Every laugh is tinged with risk, every act of defiance one step away from disaster. Anna Magnani brings fire and wit as Bombolini's wife, while Hardy Kruger is perfectly cast as the increasingly frustrated German officer. So why is this film a secret? Maybe because it never fit the standard war movie mold, but its story of small-town courage, everyday rebellion, and a perfectly executed ruse makes it a standout. If you ever wanted to see the resistance outwit the Nazis with wine cellars and sheer bravado, The Secret of Santa Vittoria will leave you cheering and maybe a little thirsty. Operation Crossbow, 1965. If you think World War II spy movies are all trench coats and encrypted radio signals, Operation Crossbow is here to blow up your expectations, literally. This is the under-the-radar thriller where espionage collides with one of the war's greatest arms races, the hunt for Hitler's secret rocket program. The film's got a setup as urgent as any spy caper. Allied intelligence gets wind of something big brewing in Nazi-occupied Europe. Rumors of a mysterious new weapon. The Brits quickly realize it's not just rumor. The Germans are close to perfecting the V1 and V2 rockets, game-changing technology that could flatten London and win the war for the Axis. With time running out, a handful of British agents, including George Peppard, Sophia Loren, and Trevor Howard, are parachuted into occupied territory to do what no air raid can: sabotage the rocket labs from the inside. What makes Operation Crossbow so riveting isn't just the spectacle of exploding missile bunkers, though you get plenty of that. It's the way the film balances intelligence work with nerve-shredding undercover drama. Peppard's character infiltrates the Nazi program, forced to bluff his way past suspicious scientists and ruthless Gestapo men, while Sophia Loren delivers a brief but memorable turn as a civilian unwittingly caught in the crossfire. Director Michael Anderson gives the movie a kinetic, ticking clock energy. Every close call feels earned. Every setback could be fatal. There's genuine suspense in watching Allied operatives dodge discovery, code switch on the fly, and desperately try to get word out to London before it's too late. Critics at the time didn't know what to make of its blend of action and espionage, but the movie has aged like fine sabotage. It's a thrill ride for anyone who likes their spy stories with a dash of real-world stakes. If you want proof that spies can change the course of history with a wrench and a stolen blueprint, Operation Crossbow delivers the goods and then detonates them. The Spy in Black, 1939. Ready for a little pre-war intrigue? The Spy in Black isn't just one of the earliest WI2 spy movies. It's a moody, low-key masterpiece that proves you don't need big explosions to serve up big tension. Released on the cusp of World War II, this British gem sneaks under almost everyone's radar, but deserves a prime spot in any espionage hall of fame. Set in 1917, but made as the world teetered on the edge of a new global conflict, the film follows Captain Hart, a German U-boat commander who slips into the Orkney Islands on a mission to sabotage the Royal Navy. The catch? He's aided by a mysterious local schoolteacher, Valerie Hobson, who may or may not be exactly who she claims. Espionage, disguise, and psychological chess moves fill the screen as Hart gets sucked deeper into a plot where everyone's wearing a mask and nobody is safe. Director Michael Powell, yes, the same Michael Powell who later made The Red Shoes, brings a sense of creeping dread to every fog-shrouded scene. The film isn't about chase scenes or shootouts, but about the cold, calculating mind games that make espionage so addicting to watch. It's all about who can outwit whom, and the slow realization that every ally could be a double agent in disguise. It's no accident that this movie hit theaters just months before the outbreak of WI. It's practically a prophecy. Reviewers loved its sly suspense and adult storytelling, but over the years, it got overshadowed by the bigger, flashier war epics that followed. But The Spy in Black is still a must-see for anyone who loves their spy movies taut, smart, and quietly ruthless. Before Bond, before Bourne, this is where the shadows really started moving. The Password is Courage, 1962. If you're hunting for a spy story with a twinkle in its eye and nerves of steel, The Password is Courage is your next secret weapon. This British gem, criminally underwatched, is based on the true story of Charles Coward, a man whose name pretty much says it all. Courage in the face of impossible odds. Forget suave secret agents or high-tech gadgets. Coward was a sergeant in the British Army, captured by the Nazis and sent to a string of brutal POW camps. But instead of resigning himself to fate, he became a one-man escape committee, a serial troublemaker, and, most importantly, a spy right under the Germans' noses. His real-life exploits sound like they were ripped from a pulpy adventure serial. He faked injuries, orchestrated mass escapes, and passed coded messages to the Allies. At one point, he even swapped identities with a dead prisoner to gather intel from within Auschwitz itself. The movie embraces this wild streak with gusto. Dirk Bogarde plays Coward with rakish wit and ironclad determination, turning every setback into a new opportunity for mischief. The film balances tense, high-stakes scenarios like tunnel digging and prison camp double crosses with moments of humor and humanity. There's no overblown hero worship here, just the story of an ordinary man with extraordinary nerve. Director Andrew L. Stone keeps the action lively, but never lets you forget the risks. Every act of sabotage or message smuggled out is met with the threat of death. The supporting cast brings real chemistry, making the camaraderie and tension of POW life feel painfully authentic. So why isn't The Password is Courage celebrated like The Great Escape? Maybe because Coward's story was almost too incredible to believe. But the facts are there, and the courage is undeniable. If you want a spy movie where brains beat brawn and laughter is as much a weapon as a pistol, look no further. This is The Password you'll want to remember. Black Book, 2006. You think spy movies are all stiff upper lips and men in gray suits? Black Book takes that tired formula, torches it, and serves up a World War II thriller that's as raw, sexy, and dangerous as anything out there, yet most people have never even heard of it. That's a crime, because this Dutch masterpiece from director Paul Verhoeven, yes, the same guy who brought you RoboCop and Basic Instinct, is espionage on a razor's edge. Set in Nazi-occupied Holland, Black Book follows Carice Van Houten's Rachel Stein, a Jewish nightclub singer who's lost everything to the war, her family, her identity, and her illusions about safety. Forced to survive, she's recruited by the Dutch resistance and thrown headfirst into a labyrinth of double crosses and betrayals. Her mission? Infiltrate the local Gestapo headquarters by seducing the commander. Simple, not even close. The movie turns the old femme fatale trope upside down. Rachel isn't a fantasy, she's a survivor who makes gut-wrenching choices, gets her hands dirty, and pays for every victory. What makes Black Book such a gut punch is its refusal to play by Hollywood rules. Allies and Nazis alike are depicted in shades of gray, heroes become villains, and the good guys are sometimes just as ruthless as their enemies. There's no comforting sense of justice or clean endings here. Every twist cuts deeper, every alliance is laced with danger, and you're never allowed to relax. Verhoeven directs with his usual gonzo flair, explosions, close calls, and even a little dark humor. But at the heart is Van Houten's unforgettable performance. She's tough, vulnerable, and absolutely magnetic. Critics raved, but US audiences mostly missed it, probably because it dared to show that, in wartime, everyone is a little bit of a spy, a liar, and a survivor. Want a spy movie where the only rule is trust no one? Black Book is your black diamond, dark, dazzling, and sharp enough to leave a mark.